All right, I'm excited to get this video out. I apologize if you're hearing grass being mowed in the background, but today I'm going to talk about NBA 2K20 demo, but not just the demo itself. We're going to discuss like the community reactions and the direction the game's going, the developers and so forth. And I'm going to give my perspective from a competitive gaming perspective in that regards. Now, I will say 2K this year seems like developers, they're as responsive as they've ever been. It looks like they wrote this demo out to specifically address whatever known issues there are, and they're going to make those changes. And some of those are not for the better, it sounds like, and I'll discuss that in a bit. But as far as my perspective, I'm coming from a competitive gaming perspective regarding everything that is my player. So really, that just means like the pro-am. So the online competitive experience is what I'm about. Now, with that being said, I expect a simulation basketball game that rewards high basketball IQ and obviously skills on the sticks. You know what I mean? So we'll discuss some of that. But I got to preface it by saying that the 2K community, if you play other sports games like FIFA, this is a different community. They're just now rolling out their esport league. This is, a couple of years old now. So it's really fresh. So they're just now getting there, right? And it's a different community because it seems like the community, whereas the FIFA this past year, so many of the top dogs were griping, Uber Online competitive gamers, be it Ultimate Team, that's the most competitive mode there, and everything regarding that online play, ranked play. And they're criticizing the game for legitimate reasons, right? And it's the cheesiness of it all in that it does not reward good play, good football play, that is, but it rewards people that can abuse game mechanics, which doesn't require any sort of skill, right? So many people's criticisms this past year, for example, was rooted in that. So people had issues with, time finesse finishing, 1v1s were harder than doing 360 out of the box, right? Just as an example. And the people were very critical of it, even if they were winning games, right? 2K community is a little different because it seems like a lot of community members want an easier game. And that's some of the gripes. Not saying everybody's gripe is that, but it seems like that's more of the gripes. And you'll see that when people are talking about, for example, the way they can build their players. Now, let's get into this. 2K has to make a decision. If it wants to be competitive, if it wants to be a skill-based game, at some point the developers have to draw a line and tell the community to shut the fuck up. Excuse my language. But that's the reality of the situation because you're not going to be able to please everybody. Certainly, if, again, you have a league, esports league, you have 2K League, so that's telling us that you want to make it more competitive. If that is the case, you have to understand your community, and a lot of the people that are responding, some of these guys, certainly from a content creation standpoint, they're top dogs. Some of these guys don't have what's in the best interest as far as, and I'm not disrespecting anybody, I understand their approach, but as far as competitive gameplay, right? So you got to at some point shut off the noise and say, look, this is the direction that we're going in. If you're going to play this side of the game, you have to adjust. That's on you to adjust. Now, the demo itself, I want everybody, now I know everybody has their reactions to the demo, and I think people aren't honestly analyzing it. Some of it is, I guess, acting in bad faith, but a lot of it can be attributed to the fact that 2K kind of dropped the ball with how they handled the demo. Mike Wang confirmed that the MyPlayer games were on Pro and the 2KU, I believe, was on Rookie, if I'm not mistaken. Those are low-level ass modes, right? So you're not getting an honest assessment of the game by playing it on those dumbed-down ass modes, right? So when people were griping about the blow-bys, if they were griping from an offensive standpoint, as in their players able to blow by anybody, you're playing on Pro. Take that into consideration. Not to say that it's going to be fixed in the final game. I don't know that. And that's the problem with the setup, which they should have had you being able to change the damn difficulty, right? But that and 2K use on rookie. So when you're seeing all these videos of people talking about dribbles, moves, and all, like, you have to take that shit into consideration. You're playing on a rookie, bro. You're playing on pro. If you're getting caught with, and this is on the defensive side, if you were bitching about the blow-bys, for example, that, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. I had zero problem with that from a defensive standpoint. Yes, my players are centered around primarily defense, but I didn't have that issues. And so if you're getting blown by on pro, you may have to adjust your play. More so, you may need to adjust your build, right? Because yes, I do believe that if it's going to be a competitive experience, the non-defensive players, people that want to strictly prioritize offense, should be made to pay for it. Simple as that. But let's talk about the builder. The builder itself is the best that it's ever been. But people are bitching and moaning about it. And this is crazy that I'm even saying this, because I've been the last person to ever shield for NBA 2K. But I will give them credit where it's due. The builder is awesome. And by that, I mean from a competitive standpoint, it's awesome. You have more control. It's a rightful limitation, but you have more control of your build. Example, mine's, I don't care for shooting in terms of the playing style for my team, right? So last year I had this primary playmaker, secondary defender, right? I would have loved for those points that were going to the shooting to go more so for slashing. I can do that this year. I can take away from my shooting. I can apply it to the deal, and it makes you have to think. So the people that are talking about these limitations want a 99 overall superstar that's good at basically everything, right? And you can, to be fair, come up with builds that are average at everything, or above average to average on everything. So they don't have a true weakness. They just don't have a true strength. You can make those sorts of builds in any given position. So to say that it's more limited is a lie. But I got to get you guys to understand from a competitive standpoint why it's like that and why it should remain like that. This is about team play. This is basketball. This is, yes, there's 1v1 sometimes. I don't know if they're going to have that in the neighborhood or park or whatever. But this is about team play, right? So if you're going online, certainly playing the most competitive mode that is Pro-Am, I think the park should be way more competitive, but I'm willing to concede that is a fucking arcade mode. But with Pro-Am, it's a team-based game. So that has to be part of the strategy, bro. That's why the builder should remain with those limitations, and you have to pick and choose, because now more than ever, they give you more choice with your character to build them to your playing style, as not just your personal play style, but the playing style that is, your team. And this is why I'm always telling people, like, dude, you got to create a build that you think is going to benefit you for the online experience. To get a build that's just going to benefit you for the offline experience does not mean you're not going to get your ass beat down in the online experience. Those are two separate things, right? But that's why the limitations are there, because those are being held as the more competitive modes, like Jordan Rec, like Pro-Am. So the limitations have to be there. No other MMO, like PvP MMO, like has where you can just be great at everything for the most part. You look at DC Universe, for example. If you go into deals, you have healers, you have controllers, you have tanks, right? Different classes. So you got to look at the builds like those, like different classes where you pick and choose between your playing style what's going to be the most beneficial. And you do have that customization. So you have to take that into consideration. Doesn't mean you're a role player. It means you have a role, but that doesn't mean that you suck, or certainly doesn't mean that you should be 99 overhaul at everything, right? So you want that realistic aspect, simulation aspect, to combine with the fact that this is a video game after all, and it should be competitive. So the team building element can't be negate it, right? You can't just ignore that. That's part of it. So if you had people that were just 99 everything, that wouldn't make any sense. If you had people that, if you like had no caps, right, you could make these big players that could do virtually every single thing, had no weakness. If you had that, I don't care if you point to the anomalies, LeBron James of the world, Magic Johnson, and all of these people who were big guys that were playing out of position or could do multiple different things, like those don't necessarily make for a legitimate online experience. So, and I know some people are going to be like, well, if everybody's a superstar in that element, as in everybody's good at everything, wouldn't that mean that nobody has a weakness, therefore it's going to be just as competitive? No, because when you're looking at a basketball game, the goal is to get the ball into the rim. So increase stats. You got to think about it from a coding standpoint. Increase attributes in that, and that's what I mean by stats. Increased attributes mean less room for error. That's not so just because you have everybody with 9, that doesn't mean anything, because everybody has their room for error when it comes to making a basket limited. So that's why it makes a lot of sense that you got to kind of pick and choose. You can still be a great player. You can be balanced. You can be offensive minded. You can be defensive minded. You can do all of that stuff. You can be both, right? You can do all of that and still create those. You have to put a little more thought into the build. But the game shouldn't make it easy for you just by unleashing the caps and saying, look, no, you should be able to give you giving more attribute points so you can be whatever the hell you want and do whatever the hell, like, and then they go point to these anomaly. Kevin Durant, who's a goddamn unicorn. It's not a whole lot of 7-footers moving like that, bro. You know what I mean? Like, but everybody wants to be that, right? So it's like it doesn't make for a competitive game if everybody can create that. And I get the people that don't want it to be competitive. They have that sort of access to that kind of build because, again, they aren't made to pay for their lack of skill because the attribute makes up for it. That's a problem, right? You're not supposed to be good at every single thing. You got to play to your strength, and that's what a team building element comes into play in your game style. Now, you also got to look at it from this. I know a lot of people were griping about the stamina, and I talked about this in my last video where the stamina, I had a problem with it the first game, but once Czar was talking about, look, don't think of stamina like you've ever thought about it before where you can just sprint around. You got to think of it as you got to pick and choose your spots. Now, when I did that, I had no problem with the stamina. I got but it's a new game, and that's a new element, right? So if you're playing it like 2K19 after the devs are telling you it's different. If you're playing it like 2K19, you're going to make a mistake. And I think that's what a lot of people did, and they're still trying to do it, and they're saying, well, it's a problem, right? Look, I didn't see the problem that a lot of people saw, but it does look like, and this is my issue with Mike Wang talking about fixing that as well as the player movement. And I don't know exactly what that entails, but if that means buffing it, I disagree with that. I feel like that is an element that people should have to adjust to, certainly from a competitive standpoint. Now, this is where 2K made the mistake. It's hard to honestly judge this game because you don't have a choice. And I know a lot of people are bitching about like, oh, well, you only got 6 builds and so forth. Like, screw that, right? Or you can't change the dribble move. Screw all of that. The fact is you can't change anything regarding the difficulty. So you don't have an honest assessment of the game. Certainly when it regards the expectation of the online experience, like you don't know what to base it off of. So the developers are getting people criticizing a game that really you had the 2K, which you could play scrimmage, and you had those 6 My Player games, but that's it. And they were played on Pro and Rookie. So this is why you gotta take the people's criticisms, lack thereof as well, with a grain of salt, because the game you have no option to change the difficulty. That's a mistake on 2K when they put out the demo. I think it would have made more sense to maybe have like a play now, online play now, so people could play online with each other to sort of gauge that. But also, if you could 2Ku would have been fine if you could just change the difficulty of the not necessarily the 2Ku, but more so for the mod player, so you can really get that experience. But they dropped the ball on that as far as what the default is, because people are playing that and trying to base, well, this is a problem, this is a problem, that is a problem, off what is a dumbed down version of it, right? It moves different, it feels different, the AI acts different when it's on that particular difficulty. But 2K has to make a decision, like I said at the beginning of this video. Do they want to be an arcade game, or do they want to move in the direction of competitive play? And if they want to move in the direction of competitive play, like some of the other sports games are trying to go, then what you have to address, or no, more so, you have to draw a line in the sand, and the stuff that you have to be responding to isn't to the people that want the game to be easier. It's to the people that are being honestly critical of it, and critiquing it. That's going to make it more or less, or more so competitive, right? That's the element that you have to take into consideration, because there's going to be a lot of noise because you built this vast community of people that's been playing this arcade mode that you've been pretending, or arcade game that you've been pretending is a simulation basketball game from an online perspective. And now that you have this 2K League, you got to make a decision. You got to make a decision, and you seem like you have already made a decision that you're moving to competitive play. So if you're going to do that side of the community, you got to shut them up. Now, what I think you could do as a way to make everybody happy, right? Because 2K prides itself in having something for everybody, right? What you could do, what you should probably do, I believe you probably can still do it, is give people the option to create players that they can never bring online. Then you can just completely remove the caps. So people that are crying about that, hey, I just want to play offline, but my player's capped, I want to be 99. Give them that mode. They want to make this goofy ass mode where they can do all of that, make their players whatever they want, and 7'3" with Kyrie handles and agility. Fine, let them do it. Give them the mode offline. You just can't bring them online. That's what I think it needs to happen. But if you are going to pride yourself in being a competitive game online that takes actual skill, knowledge, skill on stick, but also take skill from a basketball IQ, and I think that's where it's lacked. Certainly last year was a fucking horrible game in that regard. It's like just being 100 with you. But if you want to be competitive, and you want to be a competitive game, that's the approach you have to have. You got to cut out the noise, and on the online experience regarding my career. Now, I may have another completely different conversation regarding my team, which is the Ultimate Team equivalent. But I like the limitations. I like the builder. I'm fine with that. But if you're going to take this game over the top, the changes that you make, the game isn't perfect, but the changes you make need to be when it comes to increasing that skill gap, not trying to cater to people who expect the game to be easy for them, specifically on Pro-Am. Maybe I would even concede, which I disagree at heart, but maybe I'll even concede if you want to give these guys the sliders are different on every mode, but if you want to give them the arcade experience, you keep that on the park, fine, right? But certainly with Pro-Am, you have to have those elements that separate the shitty, cheesy players that want to just abuse game mechanics from the people that are actually good at the game, also have good team basketball IQ. That's where I'm at with it. But unfortunately, you messed up by putting out a demo that is basically dumbed down. And unfortunately, it seems like you're changing the game based on that, based on people playing pro and rookie difficulty. Like, come on, man. Like that's not realistic. Realistic from from like really getting the gist of the game. Now, I will say that people should know that the content creators that are like, "Hey, you need to fix this, that make me better, make it easier." Like they should know that too. But you kind of dropped the ball there, 2K. But that's where I'm at. I know it's a long video, but y'all got to look at the demo like that, bro. Don't look at the demo like the shit's on Hall of Fame slaughters, man. And you also got to consider the direction that 2K is going. 2K is not supposed to play like NBA Street, bro. Like it's not. It's not. It's supposed to be a simulation basketball game. And in my career, my player element, when it comes to the online experience, it's supposed to be competitive. They're telling you that by having its own league that is 100% centered around that, which I love. I think that the best thing that happened to it was getting a pro league to keep them at bay, to get the cheese out, because now you got people putting their money and resources in. If you're going to be to the standard of a competitive game, you got to make it a competitive skill-based game. So that's one of the best things that's happened. But I will say, yes, because you built this community with a lot of these fucking children and goofballs who are expecting the game to be easy and expecting players that can do whatever they want to with little consequence, no team building element, just pick this build and win. Like, look, you're going to get a lot of pushback. So that's when you draw the line and you say, look, we understand that you guys are having to adjust your play. We understand that the game's more difficult. You can't dribble all day long. You can't just spam dribble all day long with your stamina being as such. If you make offensive builds, you're going to pay for it on the defensive side. That just has to be the reality of the situation. And you got to, as a dev, it's cool that you can come out and say that, but you certainly have to be like, look, this is how we're doing it. Adjust or be bad at the game. Simple as that. Simple as that.